At 38 years old, I'm Deborah, a name that barely registers in my own family's memory. Growing up, I was always the shadow cast by my sister Amanda's blinding spotlight. From the moment she entered our lives prematurely, gasping for breath in that sterile hospital room, everything shifted. My parents didn't just prioritize her, she became their universe. And I was an afterthought. The day my father rushed out into the cold night to take my mother to the hospital, I remember sitting alone on the couch with Aunt Jennifer, clutching my stuffed rabbit like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Little did I know then that this would be the beginning of a lifetime spent feeling invisible. The emotional toll hit hardest when they started saying things like, "We have to sacrifice everything for Amanda." Those words weren't whispered behind closed doors. They were spoken openly, as if my presence didn't matter. Sacrifice. For them, I was the sacrifice. Every cough or sneeze from Amanda sent my parents into a frenzy, while my illnesses were dismissed as inconveniences. Once, when I had a fever so high I could barely stand, my mother handed me a bag and said, "You'll stay at Grandma's tonight. We can't risk you being near Amanda." It wasn't concern, it was rejection. Over time, these moments carved deep scars into my heart, leaving me desperate for even a fraction of the love they showered on Amanda. But no matter how hard I tried, how many trophies I brought home, or how quietly I excelled, I remained the forgotten child. After Amanda's premature arrival, our home transformed into something unrecognizably sterile fortress of disinfectant and anxiety. The once warm, inviting atmosphere was replaced by an oppressive aura of hypervigilance. My parents' world revolved around Amanda's fragile existence, and I quickly learned that my role in this new dynamic was disposable. At 8 years old, I didn't fully grasp the complexities of prematurity or the fragility of a newborn's lungs, but I understood one thing clearly. I was no longer a priority. Every sniffle from Amanda sent my parents spiraling into panic mode. While my own illnesses were treated as mere inconveniences, they were acknowledged at all. One particularly cruel memory stands out vividly. I had caught a mild cold, nothing serious, just a runny nose and a slight cough. But when my mother noticed, her reaction was nothing short of apocalyptic. She gasped, clutching her chest. "Deborah, did you cough?" she demanded, her voice trembling with alarm. Without waiting for an explanation, she grabbed the phone and dialed the doctor, pacing back and forth like a soldier preparing for battle. "We can't take any chances," she declared firmly. Within minutes, I found myself packed off to Grandma's house, forbidden even to peek through the window at Amanda's crib. It wasn't just isolation, it felt like exile. Each time I returned from these forced visits, I clung to a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, my parents would notice me. Maybe they'd pull me into a hug, ask how my stay with Grandma had been, or simply acknowledge that I existed beyond being a potential threat to Amanda's health. But those hopes were always dashed. Instead, their first words were invariably about Amanda. "How is she doing? Is she eating well? Did you wash your hands before leaving?" The questions stung, not because they were harsh, but because they underscored my invisibility. Over time, the visits to Grandma's stopped feeling like adventures and started resembling punishments, a constant reminder that I was unworthy of the same care and affection lavished on my sister. As the months turned into years, the pattern became ingrained in every aspect of my life. If Amanda so much as sneezed, the entire household froze, mobilizing resources to ensure her comfort. Meanwhile, my achievements, no matter how significant, were met with indifference. Once, after winning second place in a regional spelling bee, I proudly showed my certificate to my father. He barely glanced at it, distracted by Amanda's wailing in the background. "Not now, Deborah," he muttered, rushing past me to tend to her needs. That moment crystallized everything I had begun to suspect. In my family, there was no room for two children. Amanda's presence consumed all the oxygen, leaving me gasping for scraps of validation. Looking back, I realize how deeply those early experiences shaped me. Each rejection chipped away at my self-worth, teaching me to suppress my desires and silence my voice. Yet, despite the pain, I held onto a faint hope that things might change that someday. My parents would see me as more than just a shadow in Amanda's glow. That hope, however misguided, kept me tethered to them for far longer than I should have stayed. As I grew older, my desperation for parental approval turned into an obsession with achievement. If Amanda was the fragile princess of the family, then I would become its unsung warrior, battling for scraps of recognition through sheer excellence. By middle school, I had transformed myself into the epitome of academic perfection's trait. A's captain of the debate team and a science fair champion. But no matter how many trophies I brought home or how loudly my teachers praised me, my accomplishments were met with deafening silence from my parents. Their world revolved around Amanda, whose every whim seemed to dictate their priorities. One incident stands out as particularly devastating, a moment that crystallized just how invisible I truly was. It was during my sophomore year when I qualified for the National Debate Championship, an honor only a handful of students in our state achieved. The competition took place over 3 grueling days, and I poured every ounce of energy into preparing. On the final day, I delivered what I believed was the performance of a lifetime. My arguments were sharp, my delivery flawless, and when they announced my name as the first-place winner, I felt a surge of pride unlike anything I'd ever experienced. For once I thought, maybe this will be the thing that makes them notice me, but it wasn't. When I called home later that evening, eager to share the news, no one answered. Confused, I tried again the next morning, but still there was no response. Finally, late that night, my father picked up the phone. Before I could even speak, he cut me off. "We're at the hospital," he said tersely. "Amanda's stomach pains are worse than we thought." My heart sank. Stomach pains? I knew exactly what that meant. Amanda had been faking illness again, likely to avoid her homework. And yet, here they were, sitting in a sterile hospital room, holding vigil for her fabricated ailments, while completely oblivious to the fact that their other daughter had just won a national title. This pattern of neglect became unbearable. Amanda, sensing the extent of my parents' blind devotion, began exploiting it shamelessly. One afternoon, she collapsed dramatically in the living room, clutching her chest and gasping for air. My mother screamed, rushing to her side, while my father dialed 911. Paramedics arrived within minutes, only to find Amanda smirking behind closed eyes once she realized the commotion had earned her the latest designer handbag she'd been begging for. These manipulations weren't rare, they were routine. Every time Amanda wanted something expensive, whether it was a luxury watch or a spa day with friends, she simply feigned some dire medical emergency. And each time, my parents fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Meanwhile, my achievements continued to fade into the background, overshadowed by Amanda's theatrics. Even when I showed them my debate trophy, gleaming gold under the kitchen light, their response was dismissive. "That's nice, dear," my mother muttered, barely glancing at it. "Did you wash your hands before touching Amanda's medicine?" Her words stung more than any insult ever could. They weren't just ignoring me, they were erasing me, piece by piece, until I wondered if I even existed in their eyes. After graduating from college, I landed a managerial role at Thompson and Company, a position that sounded impressive, but barely paid enough to cover rent, let alone luxury living. My salary wasn't glamorous, but it was enough for me to survive in my small apartment while maintaining the illusion of mediocrity that my family expected. What no one knew was that during those early years, I had already begun laying the groundwork for something far greater. It started with an innocuous ad on social media. "Learn how to make your money work for you." Normally, I would have scrolled past such promises without a second thought, but something about that moment felt different, like fate whispering in my ear. The course cost several $100s, a steep price tag for someone living paycheck to paycheck. To afford it, I made sacrifices that bordered on absurdity. For 2 months, I subsisted almost entirely on instant noodles, rationing them like a soldier preparing for battle. Every time hunger gnawed at my stomach, I reminded myself why I was doing this, to escape the suffocating cycle of invisibility and neglect. Meanwhile, my parents remained oblivious, still treating me as though I were the same unremarkable daughter who couldn't compete with Amanda's brilliance. The irony stung deeply. They didn't realize that their dismissive attitude fueled my determination even more. As I delved into the world of investing, I quickly discovered its complexities and its potential. Matthew, the instructor, broke down concepts that initially seemed impenetrable, teaching me how to analyze markets, manage risks, and spot opportunities. My first investment was Modesta, mere $375 in a little-known AI startup, but when it skyrocketed to $3,500 within 3 months, I felt a rush of exhilaration unlike anything I'd ever experienced. This wasn't just money, it was validation. Each successful trade became a silent rebellion against the years of being overlooked. Yet, every triumph came with its own emotional toll. Watching my parents lavish Amanda with expensive gifts using funds I secretly sent them left me seething inside. Once, after overhearing my mother gush about Amanda's new designer handbag bought with my money, I locked myself in my room and cried. But through tears I vowed never to let them control me again. One day I whispered to myself, clutching my laptop late at night, "I'll show them exactly who I am." That resolve kept me going through countless sleepless nights, spent studying market trends and managing portfolios. While Amanda basked in the spotlight, I quietly built my empire, brick by financial brick. And though my family continued to see me as insignificant, I knew the truth. I was becoming unstoppable. Every dollar I earned was a step toward independence, a way to reclaim the life they had tried so hard to diminish. Looking back now, I realize those lean years weren't just about survival. They were about transformation. From poverty to power, from invisibility to invincibility, I was crafting my revenge not out of malice, but out of necessity. For years, I had been silently funneling $7,000 a month into my parents' account, hoping it would ease their financial burdens and perhaps, in some small way, make them see me as more than just the overlooked daughter. The transfers were automatic, discreet, my way of contributing, without drawing attention to myself. After all, I had built my wealth quietly, and I preferred to keep it that way. But deep down, there was always a faint hope that this act of generosity might finally earn me a sliver of gratitude or acknowledgement. How naive I was. One day, while visiting my parents for one of those obligatory Saturday dinners, I noticed something glinting under the dining tabula. Flash of gold so unmistakable it caught my eye even before Amanda walked in wearing it. It was a Gucci handbag, its logo practically screaming luxury. My stomach churned as realization dawned on me. That bag wasn't purchased with their savings. It was bought with my money, the same money I sent each month to help them pay bills and support Amanda's extravagant lifestyle. Meanwhile, I was still living in a modest rented apartment, pinching pennies to maintain appearances at work while secretly managing millions. "Where did you get that?" I asked Amanda, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. She smirked, twirling the bag by its strap like a trophy. "Oh, Mom got it for me last week. Apparently, I needed something classier, now that I'm interviewing for jobs." Her tone dripped with smugness, as if flaunting her superiority yet again. I turned to my mother, who sat quietly sipping tea, avoiding eye contact. "You used my money for that." I gestured toward the gaudy accessory, my anger bubbling beneath the surface. Her response hit me like a punch to the gut. "Amanda needs it more than you do," she said matter-of-factly, as though it were an irrefutable truth. "She has to present herself well if she wants to compete with those wealthy classmates of hers." Every word felt like a dagger slicing through whatever shred of self-worth I had left. They weren't just using my money, they were weaponizing it against me, prioritizing Amanda's superficial desires over my basic dignity. That night, I lay awake replaying the scene in my mind. The irony was suffocating. Here I was, funding a lifestyle I didn't even partake in, while being told I wasn't worthy of the same care or respect. Each dollar I sent wasn't an investment in family, was fuel for their obsession with Amanda. And yet, despite the betrayal burning inside me, I couldn't bring myself to stop the transfers. Not yet. Deep down, I clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd change. But as days turned into weeks, that hope grew thinner until it snapped entirely. Thanksgiving had always been a tense affair in our household, but this year felt especially suffocating. The catered food I'd arranged sat untouched as Amanda stormed back into the dining room, clutching my laptop like it was a weapon. Her smirk sent chills down my spine. Before she even spoke, "Let's find out just how well Deborah's really doing," she announced, her voice dripping with venom. With one swift motion, she turned the screen toward the stunned faces of our family. My banking app glared back at us all, $10 million displayed in cold, hard numbers. The room froze. Aunt Jennifer gasped audibly, leaning forward to squint at the screen. My mother's face went pale, then flushed crimson as her trembling hands flew to her mouth. 10 million, she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. Amanda stood there, triumphant yet visibly shaken, her earlier bravado faltering as reality sank in. "She's been lying to us this whole time," Amanda shrieked, pointing an accusatory finger at me. "She's not some lowly manager, she's rich." For years I had swallowed their dismissals, their neglect, but now something inside me snapped. "Yes, Amanda," I said sharply, rising from my seat. "I am rich. And you know why? Because I worked for every single penny while you paraded around with your Gucci bags and designer shoes, funded by my money." My voice echoed through the silent room, each word landing like a hammer blow. "You think I owe you anything?" I continued, my tone rising with every syllable. "Do you remember when I won that science fair? You didn't even glance at my trophy. Do you remember when I graduated college with honors? You were too busy planning Amanda's lavish graduation party. Every achievement of mine was ignored, every need dismissed, because Amanda always came first." Tears streamed down my face, but they weren't tears of sadness, they were tears of rage, of liberation. My father tried to interrupt, his face contorted with fury. "How dare you speak to your mother like that? We raised you better than this."
"No, Dad."
I shot back, cutting him off. "You didn't raise me, you ignored me. You sacrificed everything for Amanda and expected me to stay quiet, to keep sending money without question. Well, guess what? I'm done. I don't owe this family a damn thing." The air crackled with tension as my words hung heavy in the room. For the first time in my life, I saw fear flicker in their eyes. It was exhilarating. The moment I canceled the automatic transfers to my parents' account, I knew there would be consequences, but nothing could have prepared me for the storm that followed. Within hours, my phone buzzed, incessantly calls, texts, and voicemails flooded in from my mother, father, and Amanda. At first, their messages were laced with fury, demanding an explanation for my betrayal. When I didn't respond immediately, they shifted tactics, guilt-tripping me with emotional manipulation. "How can you abandon your own family?" my mother sobbed in a voice message. "After everything we've done for you." The audacity of her words made my blood boil. When ignoring them failed to work, they escalated. One evening, as I returned home from running errands, I found my parents and Amanda waiting outside my apartment building, shouting loud enough to draw stares from neighbors. My mother pounded on the lobby door, screaming my name like a banshee. Amanda stood beside her, arms crossed, glaring daggers at me through the glass. "You think you're better than us now?" she yelled, her voice dripping with venom. "We raised you. You owe us." Their accusations felt like knives slicing through whatever shred of patience I had left. But it was what happened next that truly stunned me. The following morning, I woke up to find my mother's latest social media post plastered across every corner of the internet. She had labeled me a traitor to the family, claiming I refused to support my struggling parents and indebted sister. Her post included dramatic emojis and tearful pleas for prayers, painting herself as the victim while portraying me as a cold-hearted monster. Strangers and distant acquaintances alike chimed in, hurling insults like ungrateful brat and selfish coward. Even people I hadn't spoken to in years joined the chorus of condemnation. That same day, my father called repeatedly, his tone shifting from anger to desperation. "If you don't resume sending money, we'll sue you," he threatened during one particularly heated voicemail. "This is our right as your parents." His words sent chills down my spine, not because I feared them, but because it confirmed everything I already knew. They saw me not as a daughter, but as an ATM machine. I acted swiftly. I blocked their numbers, emails, and social media accounts. Then, I contacted James, the front desk manager of my building, instructing him to deny them entry should they attempt another ambush. As I sat alone in my apartment that night, scrolling through listings for homes in faraway cities, I realized something profound. Cutting ties wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. For the first time in my life, the decision to leave everything behind wasn't made lightly, but it felt like the only path forward. For weeks after severing ties with my family, I scoured real estate listings in cities far from where I grew up, places where no one knew me, where Amanda's name wouldn't open doors and my parents' guilt trips couldn't follow. It wasn't just about escaping their reach. It was about reclaiming my life on my own terms. One evening, as I packed the last of my belongings into neatly labeled boxes, I paused to write a final message for the people who had once defined so much of my existence. "I'm not running away," I wrote, my pen pressing hard against the paper. "I'm choosing to live without being controlled by greed and selfishness." The words felt heavy, each one carrying the weight of years spent under their suffocating expectations. Leaving this note on the kitchen counter of my soon-to-be vacant apartment felt symbolic, a quiet declaration that I was done playing their game. If they found it, they'd likely twist its meaning, painting me as ungrateful or heartless. But I didn't care anymore. Their opinions no longer mattered. As I loaded my car early the next morning, the sun barely peeking over the horizon, I glanced back at the building one last time. Memories flooded my mind, the late nights spent studying while ignoring their dismissals, the hollow ache of sitting through family dinners where I was invisible, and the moment I realized my wealth meant nothing to them unless it served Amanda. Shaking off the wave of nostalgia, I reminded myself why I was doing this. Freedom from their manipulation, their endless demands, and the toxic cycle of trying to earn love that was never freely given. Driving out of town, I noticed a black sedan trailing me at a distance. My heart raced. Had they hired someone to track me? Paranoia clawed at my thoughts, but I forced myself to stay calm. After an hour of zigzagging through side streets and doubling back, the car disappeared. Whether it was real or imagined, the fear lingered, a reminder that cutting ties didn't mean instant peace. Still, I pressed on, driving toward a future where I could breathe without feeling their grip tightening around my throat. When I finally arrived in my new city, a small coastal town known for its anonymity, rented a modest home overlooking the ocean. As I stood on the porch, watching the waves crash against the shore, I whispered to myself, "This is mine now. No one can take it from me." Walking away from my family wasn't just an act of defiance, it was survival. For decades, I allowed their neglect and manipulation to shape me, hoping they'd see my worth. But the truth hit me like a freight train: they never would. Staying meant letting them drain every ounce of my strength. Cutting ties felt like severing a limb, but it also freed me from the toxic chains that bound me. Amanda's greed, my parents' blind devotion to hurt. They didn't love me, they used me. And when I stopped being useful, I was disposable. Now, Sitting in my new home by the ocean, I realize this isn't abandonment, it's reclaiming myself. The silence here is golden, a stark contrast to the chaos I left behind. Some may call me cold or heartless, but I know the truth. Sometimes walking away isn't failure, it's courage. It's choosing yourself when no one else will.